Hello, welcome back. So, in the previous set of videos, we've identified that the presenting problem is an attachment-related pathology, family systems, potential overtones. We've identified the three broad categories of symptoms that we're looking at. So, in this segment, I'm going to unpack one of the symptom domains. Which one do we start with? Do we start with the oppositional defiant? Do we start with the attachment? Do we start with the anxiety symptom? Doesn't matter. Up to you. You choose. Oh, sorry, you can't choose. Okay, sorry. So I guess I'll have to choose which one. My point is, it doesn't matter which one we start with. Start with any one you want. I'm going to choose the hostile aggressive ones. Okay, so we're going to start with the hostile aggressive ones in this particular clip. So let's, keeping the other two kind of aside, let's just unroll and take a look over here at what the hostile aggressive conflict symptoms look like. So we have parent-child conflict. Oh, there's so many things that can cause parent-child conflict. I come out of ADHD, oppositional defiant stuff, delinquency, just school failure. There's just a wealth of stuff that we're into potentially with oppositional family conflict symptoms. So let's start teasing that out. Let's start finding out what that's about. Authentic parent-child conflict, you can see the child's behavior is under the stimulus control of the parents. You can see that the parent is doing something that's causing the conflict, or the child's vulnerability, ADHD or something, is causing the conflict. So we're going to look at that nature of that conflict and see what's causing it. So tell me about what you guys are fighting about, what the conflict is here. And as we look at that conflict, it doesn't have the features that we typically get in typical parent-child conflict that shows in my office. That one of the strong feature presentations of this parent-child conflict is that the child is provoking conflict, and in many cases intentionally, it seems, provoking conflict. The child's not trying to get away from it, avoid conflict. The child is provoking conflict. Why? That's not the way protest behavior works. Then why is a child provoking conflict? Odd. And then we have this particular feature of the child in an elevated status judging down at the parent. So the child is judging the adequacy of the parent. And I find myself, if I'm going to solve this, I find myself in a position of having the parent work to appease the child. Well, that's weird. No. We don't set up a family structure where the parent is seeking to appease the child. Parents are in the executive leadership role of the family, and children need to adjust to the executive leadership. It's called parental authority of the parent. But here I have the parent trying to appease the child. The child is in a status higher than the parent. That's called an inverted hierarchy in family systems work. So, okay, so we're looking at the symptom, but now all of a sudden, whole new content. We're looking at family system stuff in an inverted hierarchy. An inverted hierarchy is very characteristic of a cross-generational coalition. That's one of the features of the inverted hierarchy. Okay, but let's put family systems aside for a second. And so we got this elevated status judging down. Another really prominent feature of this parent-child conflict is the absence of child empathy. The child is cruel, is just mean. The child is rejecting the parent. I don't want to see you again. You're a bad parent. You're awful. I hate. Whoa. Where's the child's normal range compassion and empathy and love for the parent? Now, in normal conflicts, I see a lot of angry stuff, but the child still loves the parent. The child still has empathy for the parent, compassion for the parent, and it may disappear during moments of angry, but in the non-moments of angry, when they're just kind of in between fights, that compassion and empathy is there. I can see it. Normal range humans. In this situation, the child, there's no active conflict going on in my office. I'm just sitting there, and yet the child is displaying this extraordinary absence of empathy. I look over there and say, how does your mom feel about that? Or how does your dad feel about that? How does your targeted parent feel about what you're saying? Nothing. Actually, just between you and me, what they give us, if I say, how does the parent, they'll say, oh, they're being fake. They're a liar. Okay. That's actually what they give us, but I won't talk about that just yet. So there's a prominent absence of empathy. Absence of empathy is diagnostic of three conditions: autism, antisocial personality disorder, narcissistic personality disorder. So on the process of differential diagnosis, absence of empathy, is a child autistic? No. Is a child antisocial? No, he's doing well in school. I don't see any, drug abuse or crazy sort of stuff like that. No, not antisocial. Narcissistic. Let's take a look. Grandiose judgment of the targeted parent. So I've got a little grandiosity. Child feels elevated in the status above in the hierarchy. I've got the absence of empathy. Haughty and arrogant attitude. Yeah, that fits. The child has this haughty and arrogant attitude of contempt and disdain towards the targeted, rejected parent. Haughty and arrogant attitude. A sense of entitlement. Yes, the child does. The child is showing this belief system that the targeted parent must meet the child's needs to the child's satisfaction, or else the child is then entitled to exact a retaliatory revenge on the parent, to punish the parent for being a bad parent, for a failure as a parent. So the child is entitled to having their needs met to their satisfaction, or else they're entitled to punish the parent. So this sense of entitlement to the child. And the splitting, and the splitting is particularly prominent in the demonization of the targeted parent. Now, splitting, I know it's both sides, and so you have the elevation, idealization of the other parent. But in this particular case, what's particularly prominent is the demonization, all bad, of the targeted parent. And if I look over and say, how's your allied parent, they say, oh, they're wonderful, we get along great. And so there is the idealization component there. The other feature about splitting that Marshall Linehan brings up is that it's not just the polarization. It is also a rigidity in thinking. That things once defined stay that way forever. And so there's the brain gets locked into a particular concept or a particular mindset, and it's very rigid in that. It cannot envision change. And so that's another feature of the splitting pathology. And certainly we see that with the kid. The kid says, no, nothing's ever going to change. I'm going to reject this parent forever, and that's just the way of it because they did something 2 years ago. There's some event, there's some reason or justification for me never to see that parent again. And again, just between you and me, little caveat, sometimes a few of the children will say, I may have a relationship with the targeted parent in the future if they just let me reject them now. Okay, so occasionally we see that little piece in there, but again, I don't want to talk about that right now. We put that aside. So, but essentially we're seeing these prominent narcissistic personality traits: grandiosity, entitlement, haughty and arrogant attitude, splitting, and the absence of empathy. That absence of empathy has me, as a clinical psychologist, has me extremely concerned. That the absence of empathy is linked, associated with all the research into the capacity for human cruelty. Absence of empathy is not a good symptom we ever want to see in a child. So that particular symptom has me extremely concerned. 1 to 10 scale, absence of empathy, I'm at a 10. That's just a extremely concerning symptom anytime we ever run across it. So, the question becomes, how did we get these narcissistic personality traits in a child? Child's maybe 10, 12, 14. So we got a narcissistic personality child. No, we don't. That child does not have a narcissistic personality. No, no. Children do not independently develop narcissistic personalities. Doesn't happen. That 10-year-old is not a narcissistic personality disorder. Nope. I'm not going there. The chances of that, if you're going to argue that this child has a narcissistic personality disorder, I'm not going to, no, I don't agree. I do not agree. So then how do we account for the child having narcissistic personality symptoms? The inverted hierarchy is our key. The inverted hierarchy, that grandiosity where the child is judging the parent, inverted hierarchy, if we bring in the family systems literature and we spread the family system stuff all in front of us here, and we take that inverted hierarchy and plug it into the family systems literature, boom, everything lights up. Everything lights up. The first thing that lights up really brightly is the cross-generational coalition. An inverted hierarchy is a distinctive symptom indication of a cross-generational coalition. That's what a cross-generational coalition produces, an inverted hierarchy. So immediately we got that. We've got, with the cross-generational coalition, we got the child's triangulation into the spousal conflict. So we got triangulation, cross-generational coalition, inverted hierarchy. The triangulation is the stabilization of the family. We got homeostatic stability lighting up in our family systems model. The family's transitioning is unable to make a transition. And so symptoms emerge triangulating the child through a cross-generational coalition. So that cross-generational coalition, let's take a look at that for a second. That is an alliance between the one parent, the supposedly favored parent, the allied parent, and the child against the other parent. Cross-generational coalition described by Mnuchin, described by Haley, standard family system stuff, Goldenberg and Goldenberg, cross-generational coalition. Oftentimes, that coalition has an enmeshed component to it. Salvador Mnuchin, that there's an enmeshed relationship. Now, enmeshment is a psychological fusion. It is a shared psychological state. So automatically, when we open up to that and we go into intersubjectivity and the whole Stern and Shore and Tronick, but I'm not going to go there, at least not today. And so we're just going to stay up on the enmeshment side or that coalition side where a parent is influencing a child's attitudes and beliefs. So we have a parent in the cross-generational coalition influencing the child's attitudes and beliefs against the other parent. Well, the way we explain, the obvious explanation for the narcissistic personality symptoms in the child's symptom display is that it's the parent, the influencing parent, who has the narcissistic attitudes. The haughty and arrogant attitudes about the other spouse, the absence of empathy for the other spouse, the demonization of the other spouse, the grandiosity and sense of entitlement relative to the other spouse. It is the spouse, the parent, who has those beliefs. They are then influencing the child's attitudes and beliefs as part of the coalition so that the child is acquiring those belief systems. So I refer to those narcissistic symptoms as the psychological fingerprints of control by a narcissistic parent. We cannot control a child. We cannot, without leaving psychological fingerprints of our control on the child's symptom display. Those are the narcissistic personality symptoms of the child. So now if we wipe away family system stuff, go back to just our symptom display, we have these aggressive, conflict, hostile, negative symptoms over here in the child that are being caused by a cross-generational coalition with the allied parent against the targeted parent, and the allied parent has prominent narcissistic personality traits that are being acquired by the child in the child's rejection of the targeted rejected parent. So now we've kind of unpacked the aggressive symptoms. Let's roll those back up. Let's push those back up. And now we have the three symptoms again. We have the aggressive, hostile conflict symptoms, we have the attachment-related symptoms, and we have the anxiety symptoms. Let's unpack a different one. So we put that back up. Let's unpack one of the other ones. Okay. Which one should we unpack? Your choice. Okay, I'll make the choice. So follow me over to the next video and we'll unpack one of those other ones.